Well, I am an author and an environmental campaigner, and for the last few years I have focused on the issue of food waste. Why? Because it's what I would call a low-hanging fruit. It's one of the things that we desperately need to solve on a global scale, and it is one of the things that is most easy to solve because the solutions are very often good for business, they're good for the environment, they're good for society, and they can be achieved without any great sacrifice. Well, I think there's no single reason why food is wasted. Globally, food prices have been on a steady decrease, a steady decline for the last 40 years, until just very recently. At the same time, people have become more affluent, and therefore you can see food waste as almost a byproduct of increased consumption and increased affluence globally. But the important thing is that whereas other consumption patterns such as increased driving, increased flying, increased meat consumption, increased dairy consumption, all of those are, if you like, responses to people's desire to have more stuff and their ability to buy more stuff as a result of increased affluence. Increased food waste is not an integral part of the consumer world economy. We may have the view that dismantling the entire capitalist consumer-led economy would be a desirable thing, but the important thing is that we can avoid food waste without even doing that. And that's why I call it a low-hanging fruit. It's something that we can achieve even within the existing model of consumer economy. I do try and avoid flying. So, for example, when I come to Milan, it's an easy train journey. There's no question of me flying that journey. I can get on a train in the morning and I shall be in Milan in the evening. Almost don't even think about train journeys to Italy. I think I'll be doing it 3 times this year. So last year I took the train, I think, 3 times to Norway. So, long train journeys I enjoy. In fact, I find that being able to concentrate on a train is more easy than concentrating in my own office, where there are so many distractions, email and telephones, and sometimes to be able to sit down with one's notebook and one's books and just watch the world go by can be an actual increase in the amount of work that I can achieve rather than the decrease. And then you get to meet people on the way and see landscape in between, and the kind of work that I do, I really can carry with me. So that's just a way I prefer to travel. What I would say is that the way things are stacked against train travel, international train travel, is at the moment it's almost unviable for many people. When I take a train to Norway, it costs hundreds of pounds. And I overheard somebody saying in the pub the other day that they were flying a return flight to Oslo for £20. The system is stacked against train travel and in favour of flight. The lack of fuel tax on aviation fuel is one of the many ways in which the system favours the least good option for travel. I don't do anything that isn't fun. It's not like I wear a hair shirt of an ascetic. And in fact, although perhaps in my youth I went through phases of attempting to achieve some kind of environmental sainthood, I no longer see that as the path that I should pursue. I really think the best model is to try and adopt a lifestyle that is achievable, that doesn't involve any great hardships. I live a very comfortable and almost on the surface a very ordinary lifestyle. And in that way, I hope to achieve maximum impact by showing that we really can live on this planet without destroying it, and do so in a way that is compatible with those things which we most value. I appreciate that people want to be able to buy consumer goods and to live in relative ease, and that's just something that we have to deal with. people in countries that are now becoming increasingly affluent in India and China, they want the things that they see that we have in Europe and in North America. What we have to do is try to deal with that situation and try to achieve it in the least harmful way. I do think that putting one's energy into trying as hard as we can to convince businesses and politicians that this is not in the long-term interests of humanity, of civilization, let alone all the other species on the planet, whilst we must, I think, dedicate every piece of energy that we can to bringing about a more sustainable system. You know, one of the edifying things about campaigning on food waste is that it's completely unlike any environmental movement that I've been involved in before, in that we really can win this battle at the very least, and we can win it relatively rapidly. And I've been encouraged to see that in many countries around the world now, in the head offices of many businesses and in the mass movements of NGOs and popular movements internationally, food waste has risen up in terms of priorities, and people are actually doing things about it. Many organizations are now wasting less food than they were only a few years ago. Sometimes dramatic reductions by food businesses, 40 or 50% have been achieved over the space of 1 or 2 years, and therefore there are some real results that demonstrate that food waste reduction is business friendly, environmentally friendly, and socially responsible, and it's really what we call a no-brainer. So in a way that helps to motivate. But when you talk about ultimately what motivates me, it comes down to love, to valuation, to an appreciation of the beauty and inherent value of the hugely varied and wonderful planet that we live on, all the amazing species of plant and animal and microorganism that there are on the planet, and all the wonderful people that populate it too, and an awareness of the catastrophic damage that we are doing both to our fellow humans and to all the other species is what ultimately motivates me. These are things that are beyond any kind of monetary value that you can put on them. They're the essence of this wonderful planet that we have evolved to inhabit. And if it's not worth saving the planet, what is worth doing? Well, funnily enough, one of the campaigns that we're going to launch fairly soon, and it's something I've been campaigning on in a general sense for several years, but we're going to launch it in a rather more formed and collaborative way. And that is precisely on the issue of how we rear pigs in Europe. Going to see these black pigs might be a very interesting project. As you might know, I myself have reared black traditional pigs here in Britain, and the principal thing is that I rear them on waste food, which is what humans domesticated pigs for several thousand years ago, to recycle food waste back into food, namely pork. And unfortunately in Europe since 2001 it's been illegal to do that, which is completely absurd, unscientific and unnecessary. And one of the campaigns that I've been running and that we're going to ratchet up this year has been the campaign to lift the ban on feeding food waste to pigs, because what we do at the moment instead of feeding them food waste is chop down the Amazon rainforest to grow soya, import 40 million tons of that stuff into Europe from South America every year, and that's to fatten our livestock. And that really doesn't make sense when at the same time we are squandering what could be a potential valuable resource, and that is all the food waste that we currently destroy instead of feeding to our livestock. I don't know if you know, but the whole campaign on food waste for me started with pigs when I was 15 years old and I was at school. and I bought some pigs and wanted to rear them in the most traditional and environmentally friendly way. So I went to my school kitchen and asked them for all the leftovers that my school friends had turned their noses up at. And I went to the local greengrocer and the local baker and asked them all for their food waste. And this was great because I was feeding my pigs on free food, and they converted into pork, which I sold to my school friends' parents. So I got some good pocket money as a young teenager. But I realized that most of the food that I was giving to my pigs was actually fit for human consumption, and I knew that I was just touching the surface. And that's when I really became aware that we were hemorrhaging out food at every link in the food supply chain, and something better than destroying food could surely be done. I remember one day, and I still very clearly remember, I was tipping out sacks of bread for my pigs, and there was a beautiful loaf made of sun-dried tomatoes, and the aroma was, really very strong and very savory, and I could tell this bread was still, fresh enough to eat. So I took one of the loaves out of the sack, and instead of giving it to my pigs, I sat down and had my breakfast with them, and it was delicious. But with that good flavor of sun-dried tomato bread in my mouth was also the taste of anger. It was, as it were, a revelation that really eating this food, which was otherwise going to go to waste, was a demonstration, a confrontation against the injustice of food waste globally. And that's what I really started the campaign with, and it's what I later learned to call freeganism, and was really a way of saying, look, this food is too good to waste, and it should be being eaten. Well, that's what has grown into my flagship campaigning event, which is Feeding the 5,000. We did one just 3 days ago down in Bristol, feeding 5,000 people for free, all from food that otherwise would have been wasted. And that's essentially the same idea, but on a large scale. And the point there is to make the point that there is really such a colossal waste of food now, and the solution to it is really nothing more complicated than eating and enjoying food rather than throwing it away, which is common sense apart from anything else. It sounds like an absolutely brilliant event, and I really believe in people sharing views and their visions of a way that the world could be instead of the way that we currently run it. There's never going to be an ideal system. There are always going to be imperfections, but we can do a good deal better than we do, and it's down to us, people, citizens, to bring that about. No one's going to solve all these problems by us just sitting back and letting them happen. We've got to get together and share our ideas and act on them.